You got a lot of devs pushing stuff up that might change things. Yeah, I will see. Yeah, it's a game changer though. Like if you can be co-located, having a space.
Hello everyone, we'll be live in about 5 minutes, okay?
It's self-conscious now because yeah.
How are you? Long time no. I should have bought the cold pack. Chris is like pack for I'm really well, I think it's going to be awesome.
Yes, that's right. Like, yeah, we had that when we had that little office. We could bring people over, so had like an exchange program going. And you sent someone over there, and then you had some people come over. It helped us sort out some issues. So some of the tension that we had when we had all the parties in the same room, you could see what was actually like. Okay, this is where this connected. That was really useful to resolve issues. Then you've got to have a reason for doing it, I guess, like why fly people across the world, what's the point of consulting for? We talked about just bringing people like work for a while to enjoy I think like if there's a problem solving, it's great. Otherwise, I don't like to justify the expense. I think maybe for younger people it's good. As an old guy or a kid, I don't want to travel so much. Yes, yeah.
I think my life might be good.
So one last
I need to I gave it to the lady.
So it's the European fund.
And just send it on the
What about Malta? I was looking at Malta for a time.
I did the TV.
I guess one of the things that's interesting for us is the way this works. You could really enable a digital nomad lifestyle. If you wanted to work from London for a month, then work from somewhere else. There's not much to stop you. Yeah, we're really conscious of requiring not to collect time zones. I had a guy in the UK for a while, but that was tough because we get up really bad for the Americans and they're coming online at 5, 6 o'clock.
It's that way.
I kind of have bursty days some days. Like Tuesday's the burstiest because that's Monday in America. So like I have like one day and then I'll probably have like today for example I'll probably be out for 3-4 hours doing work. So just kind of balance it out. It's not bad being around for time drops. No, when I work from home as well, I probably work 16 hours a day because I don't know, maybe no one computers there, and at night cash TV, I'll just keep them. Yeah. That's why I want an office, so I don't do it. So. Sample picture. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, no, he's going to grab his first birthday party this weekend. Okay, cool. Yeah. Oh, you got all the babies everywhere. We did a bit of that when Steve was in another school with about 12 to 15 other names. We did a cake special, so you've probably seen those, like, line up the babies, different coloured cakes in front of them, and let them go crazy and just photo op each other. But we just had 12 howling babies sitting in the middle of the park. So, yeah, it's pretty funny.
Hello everyone, welcome. So today I've obviously picked a nice narrow focused topic for us all to look at, and nothing that's subjective and open to interpretation. So this is of course my own view on the future of blockchain. Everyone is open to disagree and throw stones, but I've been working. Oh, hello. Another person from the past. There you go. All right. Yes, it's like a reunion. Anyway, so hello everyone. So let's lead right off. And so these slides inherit from the slides that David and John and I have put together at various times. So a lot of them are mine, but some of them are theirs as well. So if we have a think about the IT sector over the years, like, I don't know, I mean, when we were putting this slide together, we actually said, who remembers Lycos? And it's sort of like how old are you? That sort of, but you had these big players and they came and went. And an interesting one, so Amazon and Apple, like they've just gone over the $1 trillion mark, those two, so they're obviously currently the leaders. And in fact, Apple's one of those companies that's way back here, even before, and they've come and gone a bit, we've been thinking they're dead and then they've come back to life and they're doing really hard. And are these guys going to be around in another 5 years' time? I don't know. Roll of the dice, they're not right. If you look at trading volume, platform goes, so they do seem to have a pretty big problem with hard forks and trying to update the platform. So it's not evolving. And you've got Ethereum and say or Hyperledger Fabric, and you've got some cloud providers as well, Amazon, AWS, and Fabric, actually that's Fabric, but there's also Microsoft as well. And so you've got these players that are at the moment you hear about, but will others come along? In fact, are those players rising? What about EOS? Is EOS going to be the next big thing? It's really hard to say. So, you've got to trying to work out where the future goes is going to be a difficult one. So, at the moment, so I should actually have 1,000 icons up here, because they're the number of different platforms that are out there. And in fact, I almost feel like, afterwards, if someone can email in what all the symbols mean, then they get a prize or something. I currently don't have any T-shirts to throw to people, but I don't know. Anyone? What's that one?
Definity?
Yep, Definity, yep. That one? Come on, dots, polka dot, yes. All right, Ethereum, Bitcoin, and many others. So we've got a lot of platforms out there. You'll notice that Bitcoin and Ethereum seem to be a bit bigger than the others when I drew the diagram. And that's because I think they're relatively a bit more important. They're much bigger platforms. There's a lot more compute power behind them. There's a lot more researchers behind them. But Bitcoin isn't really evolving much, and you can't do interesting things. You can't run smart contracts on Bitcoin, can you? So it's not a programmable platform. I mean, there is a programming language, but it's very limited in what you can do, because if you have anything exotic, then the miners won't mine those transactions. So, what Ethereum mainnet, it gives you really strong authenticity and non-repudiation. So people can't just say, oh look, I'm going to rework that transaction. There's no way that you can have an attacker do that either. People have tried, but you can't do it. You can't revert transactions on Ethereum. So if you want to store stuff and you don't want people to be able to mess with it, Ethereum's actually a really good spot. But if you're running, say, a smaller public blockchain, like one with lower hashing power or weaker security properties, then you can be subject to 51% attacks. Or if you've got a consortium network and you were worried that the consortium members may collude and rewrite history for some reason, then you might want to leverage that. Or maybe you want to use it as an address book. You want to use and leverage those security properties that are offered by mainnet. And so, I think the other chains should do it. There's been, I'm not the only one saying this, there was a guy from IBM who was talking, who had this diagram. He didn't have Ethereum there, because I guess I didn't want to say Ethereum, but he was saying, you could leverage a public chain to provide better security. And as well, not every chain is good for every purpose. So, you're not going to run high rate transactions over Ethereum mainnet. Though if you ran Ethereum in a consortium chain, so maybe you could, because invariably these things, there's a trade-off between security and say transaction rate, like the amount of the consensus algorithm that you're running. But you might use a different chain for a different purpose. And so some chains are specifically designed for very specific use cases. So again, that may make sense to use a different chain. But again, being able to leverage that good non-repudiation properties would be a useful thing to do. So what I think you could do with Ethereum mainnet is you could use it as an address book, essentially like a DNS. You could use it for state pinning, and you could use it for coordination. And to drill into that a little bit. So for the address book, what we really want to do is be able to allow entities that haven't interacted previously to be able to interact. So if you think, when you're going on the internet and you type in https example.com, you don't know where that computer is in the world that is the server. And yet you want to interact securely with it. And so you use the domain name system, the certificate authority system, to give you the location and the trust information to trust that you can do that. But of course, DNS is a little bit broken. The DNSSEC isn't widely deployed, so you can't really rely on DNS. So hence you don't want to do that. And as well, with DNS, you've got the problem that it's censorship. Or the DNS registrars can do censorship. So if you're a delegate domain, you can be censored by actually being delisted. So we want to have a way of locating information, have it decentralised, censorship resistant. You don't want to rely on DNS. And another thought is allowing for multiple trust domains. So at the moment, you've got the Ethereum name service, ENS. And with that, if you're listed on ENS, everyone's at the same level. And yet, all things aren't the same, you know, like if I've done a serious amount of checking and validation before I list you, that's very different to some sort of social mechanism where we say, all right, we've got social levels of trust. And as well, you could imagine that you might want to have a general grouping, but then you might want to have a narrower grouping. Say, you might have a government authority who says, all right, these are the organisations that are allowed to do banking in Australia. You know, there might be some regulation. But then you might want to have membership of multiple trust zones. And so you need to have something that can give you that. And so we've actually come up with in the protocol engineering group of something called the Ethereum Registration Authority, the ERA. And it's sort of like a distributed DNS system. And the idea is that you give it a domain and then you can get some information. All pretty simple, but it obeys all those rules that we had in the previous slides. And so we've got a research paper, and we've even got a GitHub repo for the code, and there's a paper which does a much great level of detail of analysis of why this is a good idea. So whether it be the ERA system or another system, I can imagine these sorts of systems being used in the future. So another thing is that I talked about those low hashing rate side chain, public chains and consortium chains, and how you need to really pin their state to be sure that you don't have state reversion. So what you can do is you can pin it to Ethereum mainnet, so that's pretty obvious, but you need to be able to pin it anonymously if you're on a consortium chain, because the whole point of running a consortium chain is that you probably don't want everyone to know that you're doing some sort of deal, some business. And so you want to do that in a way that doesn't reveal anything, so it doesn't give up your privacy. And so again, we've come up with something called sidechain anonymous pinning, and we will open source the repo sometime in the next couple of weeks, maybe a month or so. And there is a research paper going which proves that it's secure and proves that you can get some level of privacy. And the idea as well, another thing to think about when you're looking at these sidechains is that you want to hide the transaction rate. So it's no point if David and I are doing some sort of private transactions, but by the rate of transactions we're revealing what we're doing. So I think you'll find that there will be growingly, even if it's not our system, there'll be other systems that will emerge that will do this style of thing, that will do some level of pinning so you can't have state reversion on chains that don't have as good security properties. Another thought is on sidechains on demand. I mucked up that should be AMD there. So essentially the idea of ephemeral sidechains. And so essentially you can imagine you might have like a EOS chain that is tethered off Ethereum mainnet. And then we say, all right, we want to do some business, so we spawn an Ethereum private chain. And so that chain is, deployed based on, say, between some organisations. So you can think, this is very similar to when you want to do https://example.com. You want to set up a secured connection between yourself and a company. So what happens if, say, we're there and we want to set up a secure connection between, say, three of us to, like we set up the blockchain, we want to deploy maybe some contracts, and then maybe we have some transactions that go between the chains. We say, all right, we want to do this, and the result of this work here, this output of these function calls on the blockchain, go to that other chain. And then maybe there are some other transactions which occur, and maybe there's yet more transactions, but at some point maybe you don't need that blockchain anymore. And so at that point you need to be able to archive the chain. You need to be able to take it offline and not have state persist forever. So I guess a lot of people are probably saying, just to set a whole whole idea of blockchain is it's there forever. But if you think about, so I think there are information you could imagine when you bought that car, you might write across to some other chain, hey, this person here now owns that car. But the actual nature of the interaction, of the negotiation, doesn't need to stick around forever. And then you've just got that other chain to somewhere else, and then they disappear. They will be very much like HTTPS connections, where they don't have to be around forever, and you probably have hundreds, if not thousands, of them. So within Pegasus, within Protocol Engineering Group at Consensus, as a starting point, so I know we have an EOS and an Ethereum there, but as a starting point, what we're looking at is just Ethereum to Ethereum. And figuring that will be a simpler thing to solve, or it is definitely a simpler thing to solve. Another thing that I didn't really call out was permissioned or permissionless. So at the moment, Ethereum mainnet, it is a public chain which has no permissioning, but you can imagine you could have a permissioned system where only the organisations who you want to have are on that connection or on that side chain, and you could say, all right,